the prize. Hold on.
All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Q&A session with candidates for Madison School Board. My name is Taylor Kilgore. Joining us this evening are candidates for seats number 6, Daniella Molle, and incumbent Blair Mosner Feltham, and candidates for seat number 7, Dana Colussi-Lynde, and incumbent Nicki Vander Meulen.
My name is Scott Girard, and I am a former education reporter for the Capital Times. Asking questions of the candidates this evening are 4 local journalists. Teagan King covers K-12 education for the Wisconsin State Journal. Erin Gretzinger covers the K-12 education beat for the Capital Times. Sandy Flores Ruiz is a writer, teacher, and editor at Simpson Street Free Press. And Jules DaCosta is a student at Madison West High School and teen editor at Simpson Street Free Press.
Yeah, and so our format is simple as usual. Journalists pose questions to candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. Scott and I will be the moderators. And so if a candidate wants to expand on a particular question or answer, we will grant a brief extension. So just let us know.
Likewise, our panel of journalists and moderators might ask brief follow-up questions. Candidates will also be allotted 2 minutes for a closing statement. Ben Redderson from SSFP will be our timekeeper and will help us with follow-up questions as well. So we'll get started with our first question from Erin Gretzinger of the Capital Times.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight, and thanks to Simpson Street Free Press for having me here. I wanted to first ask about the new curriculum, illustrative math, that the school board recently approved. I did some reporting recently on the critics of illustrative, including some New York public school teachers and the union, folks that had raised questions about its approach to teaching math, as well as some difficulties in learning the curriculum and utilizing it to support learners of different skill levels. So I wanted to ask all candidates, what metrics will you be using to gauge how successful this curriculum is performing in Madison schools?
For this first question, we will have Blair answer first.
Sure, that seems appropriate. That's a really good question. I think the first thing that comes to mind is that there's always going to be there's going to be a learning curve when you adopt a new curriculum. Teaching is really hard work. It's intellectual, it's interpersonal, it's creative, it's uncertain. And there's no curriculum that takes that away and just sort of turns people into machines. And we don't really want that. Over time, as we get further into the adoption of this math curriculum, we'll start at middle school and then roll down to elementary school. So it will take time before it gets to our earliest learners. But we'll want to see that proficiency rates across the board are going way up and that disparities are shrinking between student groups.
Thank you, Blair. Next, Daniella.
Thank you. Sometimes when you adopt a new curriculum, it takes a while for student outcomes to actually move. So something that is a little easier to observe, maybe student engagement with the curriculum. So one thing that I think would be important to really pay attention to is student engagement. And there are tools we have for this. For example, principals do observations. They can also do learning walks. So there are ways to collect data by visiting classrooms across our middle schools where the curriculum is being rolled out to see what student engagement looks like. And this is sort of a formative tool that leaders can use to gather information about how the curriculum is being implemented, and then to think about what support teachers might need to implement it in ways that are consistent with the vision for that implementation. So that's one thing. And another thing I think would be to speak to teachers about, what support they need to really implement the curriculum well.
Thank you, Daniela. Next, Nicki.
The first question I'm going to ask is to meet with the special ed teachers, the reading interventionists, and the math interventionists to see how we're using the curriculum with our students that are most affected. I want to see how the lessons are not just disaggregated, but how they're taught to all learners, because it's how all learners respond to it that I need to see, not just the numbers on disproportionality. I also need to see how kids are engaging with it. Are they enjoying it? Are they stressed? Are they not? Recently attended a Boy Scout meeting and to hear about how stressed children stated they were on iReady because the test made them feel like they were doing worse than other students on the computer program. That taught me quite a bit. So I'd start with the teachers and then ask the students directly. Then I'll look directly at the data because you need a composed picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicki. And finally, Dana.
So I think it's really important for us to identify what the metrics are before we roll it out so that we can routinely evaluate how we are doing against those metrics to see if we need to change our approach. I think particularly with a new curriculum that we are going to need to have a lot of professional development for our teachers to make sure that they feel really prepared. And so I'm happy to hear that that should be starting really soon, and they will have a really long time between now and the next school year. It's not something that we're just going to unleash on them at the end of the school year. The other really cool thing about illustrative that I heard was that there is a parental component where they can engage with what the children are learning to have that extra retention at home. And so I think that's one of the metrics that we can also look at is how often are you getting questions from parents about what exactly their kids are learning because they're getting to see all of the things that they're seeing in class. And so they can help their students, but also they can have much better conversations with their teachers about it.
That is time. Did you just have one more sentence?
Nope, we'll go from there.
Thank you very much.
Great. So we'll go on to our next question. So our next question is from our reporter, Teagan King from the Wisconsin State Journal.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. So as the district works to create a cell phone policy ahead of next school year and sort of shaping what that looks like, what approach would you take to this topic and what role generally about tech in school? What role do you think cell phones or other technology tools should play in schools?
All right, so let's go with Daniella.
Thank you. It's been a topic that we've had a lot of parents speak to the school board about recently, and I also know that the school district is conducting a review of that, working with UW and with La Follette School to see what the recommendation should be. Personally, I would listen to that recommendation. I also think that the research is pretty unequivocal that we do not need students to have access to cell phones at school unless that is a device that they need for health reasons. And so I think, though, that what this question presents is an opportunity to examine screen time in general. So I hope that the district would really take a careful look not only at what we decide to do with cell phones, which is, my approach would be to not have cell phones during the day. So it will be a bell-to-bell ban. But also to think about how can we make sure that the Chromebook time, that the time the students are spending interacting with screens, with online programs, online resources, online curricula is really productive for them.
Thank you so much. We'll go with Nicki next.
Unmuting is hard. But very simply, I do not believe in a bell-to-bell cell phone ban. One, I believe that cell phones are a tool for educational learning that can be used. We need to teach students how to use technology, not ban technology. Two, I believe it puts pressure on individuals who have health issues, such as diabetics who check their own blood sugar, or individuals with panic attacks, and shows that they have an exception to use it. That will increase bullying, increase stress on students. Therefore, I think a more nuanced approach of a way for the day in which the cell phone can be used in certain situations is the most prudent form for this situation. As for technology as a whole of the district, we need to look at screen time. We have to look at how our students are learning to use different sources, how to cite them correctly, and how to use them properly. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Nicki. Dana.
So I support a bell-to-bell ban because the research, as Daniella said, is pretty conclusive that student engagement drops when they have access to a cell phone during the day. Um, I definitely agree that there should be exceptions for specific people who need it for learning differences or for health issues. But by and large, children are not as engaged if they even have access to a phone or that they know that it's available. And we want children to have the time to have that retention and that social time that they're deeply lacking right now. And so that is why I would support the bell to bell ban. In terms of technology in the district, as a technologist myself, I think that there's a lot of great uses for it. However, when it comes to education, I want to ensure that we're using it in ways that further their education and build upon their foundation rather than filling in the gaps that are coming from their teachers.
Thank you, Blair.
Thank you, Teagan, for the question. With regard to the cell phone policy, there's currently a bill before the state legislature that would kind of take it out of our hands and would say that we have to implement a bell to bell. So I'm looking forward to hearing the report and seeing where that goes. And I'm withholding judgment until we get that information about how it looks locally and also what we're going to be required to do. But with regard to general ed tech in schools, when I talk to MMSD teachers, they say we've gone way overboard. When I talk to students, including my children, they say it's the most boring part of their day is their Chromebook-based learning. In my own classroom as a teacher, I see the way this, it doesn't support the type of learning I'm really looking for, the type of connected, exciting, my brain and my heart are both on fire learning that we want our students to have. And I think I want to zoom out just a little bit and connect this question with the first question. The use of ed tech and the overuse of ed tech comes from a place where we think that we can mechanize learning, and we can't. We have to be realistic that learning and teaching is interpersonal, and there is no tech and no curriculum that is going to replace that.
Thank you. All right. Well, we can go on to the next question.
Thank you all. The next question is from Sandy Flores Ruiz of Simpson Street Free Press.
Last year, in a guest column published by the Capital Times and other Wisconsin news outlets, Simpson Street staffers wrote that the State Department of Public Instruction seems less than committed to the reforms outlined in Act 20, Wisconsin's reading bill, which was signed by Governor Evers 2 years ago. In that piece, we criticized DPI's new labels for proficiency categories and lower cut scores used in statewide tests, which effectively lowered academic standards. But even with the new lower cut scores, Madison still has some of the lowest reading scores in Wisconsin. My question is this: how committed are you to Act 20 reforms and the switch of science and reading? And what specifically can you do as a board member to accelerate reading progress in our district?
First, we'll have Nicki answer.
Yes, I am very committed to following Act 20. Reading is the fundamental, most important thing because after grade 3, you're not learning to read, you're reading to learn. And that's why it is essential. I would work with reading interventionists to make sure that that curriculum is that we are doing everything we can to increase it. Additionally, on our scoring, what we need to do is work directly with the students. I love the science of reading. I love the fact that we are going back to phonics. I love how that is effective. But I also want to make sure we're using grade level curriculum on individuals in different groups. It's really hard if you are a remedial reader in high school learning from books that were written for elementary school students. I think we have to another way the board could be involved is investing in educational materials for that older population, so that way they can feel more a part of the curriculum as a whole.
Thank you, Nicki. Next, Dana.
So like Nicki, I'm very committed to investing in literacy for our students. It is very much the foundation of all of their learning, and I think it's really unfortunate how poorly our students are doing. I would definitely want to ensure that we're supporting our teachers who are advancing the new curriculum and making sure that they're having all of the professional development that they can to learn and teach to the students. But also, I think that we have an opportunity with community groups to come into our schools and volunteer to help with reading. There's also a pilot program, I believe at Lowell, where they're having high school students teach younger students how to read, and that can help encourage the older students to learn at the same time as well in a much more safe environment. So I think we really need to look at creative solutions for how to increase our literacy, increase that level of learning that Blair was talking about.
Thank you, Dana. And speaking of Blair, we'll ask you to answer next.
Thanks. I've really come around on Act 20. I think when it was being debated, I felt like, no, we're doing our own thing and it's totally going to work. And now as a parent who has received those test scores and on schedule, know that they're going to come, I actually feel really supported by that as a parent. So I've come around on Act 20 and I do fully support it and fully support MMSD's efforts to be in full compliance. I do like to brag that MMSD was a year ahead on the insistence on, or maybe 2 years ahead on the science of reading. And I am committed to that as well. As a BOE member, I think it's really important to remember that although I work with students in my own classroom in a neighboring district, there's no reason to think that my role as a board member is going to have me working with students or with teachers or with buildings at that level. As a board member, I think my role in supporting literacy achievement and literary accelerated achievement is reducing churn. So making sure that we're not telling teachers all of a sudden, psych, you have a new curriculum and you have to learn, and connecting the dots between professional development, workplace expectations, and calendar. I think connecting those dots to limit churn is going to be really important.
Thank you. And then finally, Daniella.
Thank you, Scott. I feel like one way to answer this from a board perspective is as a policy-making body. I think the board and as a body that helps set a certain direction for the district. I think I want to go back to Erin's question from the beginning about what are the metrics for the math curriculum. And I think setting specific metrics for the implementation of the new literacy curriculum that was new in 22-23 is just as important. To know what is it exactly that we're monitoring and how are we adjusting, especially if we're careful to choose metrics that can be formative, that can provide formative feedback to educators and to leaders about what they need to do, what is going well, and what needs to change. So part of it is being very clear on the metrics and exactly what it is that we need to change. And another part is, I think, being very serious about the root causes of why is it that even though we have a new curriculum that is consistent with the science of reading, it's been 3-4 years in and we're not seeing the changes that we want to see. So I think paying attention to that and exploring that is crucial.
All right, great. So our next question is from Erin Gretzinger of the Capital Times.
When it comes to achievement gaps, there's often a lot of focus placed on early intervention. However, I wanted to specifically ask about students in older grades. Just by one metric, college-ready ACT scores and MMSD in both math and English have declined by 10 percentage points over the last decade. And there's other, national tests and other, things to consider. Yet I'm wondering for you all, what are you thinking about the district and what it can do specifically to help older students who are still struggling and not meeting those expectations by the time they're in high school?
Yeah, great question, Erin. Let's go with Nicki first.
Yes, what we need to do first and foremost is realize the test will not capture every learner, because people do learn differently. That being said, when you have individuals with an average of 11 in math, which is the average ACT score for individuals with disabilities in the district, and a 14 in reading, there's a serious issue. We need to go through, one, teach people how to take standardized exams. This is not necessarily common knowledge. Additionally, not everyone has $3,000 to take a course on how to realize what is important. That's number one. Number two, you don't just teach the test, you teach on how to use the topics to understand and read comprehensively. This means not just picking out one tiny detail, but understanding how the passage works as a whole and how the books work as a whole Finally, I want to increase the use of accommodations and assistive technology when necessary for individuals with disabilities to increase their test scores.
Thank you. Dana, you're next.
So I think we have to look at the whole child. I think to Nicki's initial point, test scores are just one metric. I think there are lots of different indicators of student performance that I think we need to evaluate, and we should work with teachers to identify what those are. But the other is to start having those conversations earlier, but the supports continue throughout high school. So even if the focus is on intervening early, we're still doing those check-ins regularly and identifying where there are these gaps. And instead of passing children on to the next grade, look at what it is they really need to begin to read at grade level and perform at grade level, because we can't be sending them out into the world without being able to read and do basic math. We're not preparing them for the future if we can't even do that. So I think that there is some need to look at how we're grading, but also look at the whole child and see where there are these deficiencies. There's lots of other things going on with them outside of school, and we are providing a lot of that support to them in school. So I think we just need to make sure that we're keeping a closer eye on them.
Thanks, Dana. Appreciate that. And Blair.
Thanks for the question, Erin. I want to agree with Dana and Nicki that the test scores don't show everything, not only because people learn differently, but also a huge number of students aren't taking the exams. We don't always look at that number, but when I look at schools I've worked in with, large high schools with many 11th graders, fully like half of the students in particular subgroups don't show up for the test, and they're not officially opting out. They're just opting not to do the test. And so I think that tells us a little bit about how boredom looks in school, and what students think of the opportunities that we're giving them. I do believe that when you're in 11th grade and you've had many, many years of lack of school success, that builds up a lack of interest in continuing down that path of learning. And I think that we need to have alternative options earlier for students to keep their love of learning alive. And I also think that we need to build on-ramps, because if you miss something, there isn't always a way to get back on track. Students talk about how disheartening that is, and I think it also impacts their learning.
Thanks, Blair. Daniella.
Thanks, Erin, for the question. I think one of the things that would be important to do is to disaggregate the data and see which are the students that need the most support, how different student subgroups are performing. Because I think that the more we understand about the needs of different students, the better we'll be at addressing them. For example, my background is in the teaching and learning of multilingual students, and multilingual students often need different kinds of support than other students to access, tests to be successful when taking tests, and even when engaging with the curriculum fully. So I think that will give us a lot of important information. And then once we know that, I think once we know how different student groups are performing and which are the student groups that need most support, I think it will be important to look at, to find the pockets of excellence in our district, because we have a lot of talent in Madison. We are a district where we have talented teachers, talented administrators too. And I think learning from the places where students may be excelling more so than in the rest of the district, and making those available as a learning opportunity for the rest of the district would be important too. So I think trying to spread effective practices is something that I think the board can facilitate.
All right, we can move on to our next question. Thank you all. And that next question will be from Teagan King of the Wisconsin State Journal.
Yeah, so as neighboring districts continue to pull from Madison through open enrollment and market themselves to Madison families, what do you think is key to making Madison a destination district as is the school district's goal? And what would you do as a board member to make the district more attractive to Madison families or to get them to stay or even to get new families to choose to enroll in the district?
We'll start on this question with Dana.
So back 20 plus years ago, I was a student who moved to Madison specifically to go to West. Hi, Jules is my fellow West alum. And it was because West was being touted as the best high school in the district. I don't hear that as much about our other high schools anymore. And I think we could definitely do a better job of advertising just how great our schools are. I think that's one thing. The other is to provide our students with unique opportunities that they can't get at the other schools. One of the things that I'd really like to implement is an increased partnership with some of the local unions and businesses to have apprenticeships available for our students. Not every student is going to go to a four-year school. And so we need to have those opportunities for them to learn skills in maybe trades, which can improve that engagement that we're talking about if children see a different future for themselves. And I think that will be a big draw for other families if we can show that children are achieving and because we're providing different opportunities for them.
Thank you, Dana. Next, we'll go to Blair.
For the question. This is something I find really exciting, and it's super exciting to me that for the first time in a long time, MMSD has an enrollment team that's working on an enrollment strategy. I was super gratified to read recently that one of my personal favorite ideas, which is reaching out to families literally the day that their children are born in a Madison hospital, is something that the team has decided actually is a really cool idea. So I'm a little envious that I'm past baby having, and I'm not going to get one of those MMSD nightlights that they might hand out. But I think to be a little bit less cutesy about it, I think the facilities really matter. I think passing a $507 million referendum to renovate or build new 10 school sites is a major deal. I think the 2020 referendum to renovate the high schools is a major deal when we talk about attracting students and families to MMSD. I agree with Dana about unique community-connected opportunities. And I also think making sure that we have stability in staffing is really important to maintaining and increasing our enrollment. And that's something that I feel really strongly about, because when there's a lot of turnover in leadership or in staffing, what happens is schools are destabilized, and it's unpleasant for everyone involved, including the students that we hope will stay.
Thank you, Blair. Daniella?
Thank you. I think that I agree with what everyone else has said. I also think that it's important to understand why families are leaving, and for the first time in a very long time, now we have a team that is exploring that at the district. And so I'm very happy to hear that there are people that are at the district that are collecting information about why families are openly enrolling out of the district. Because I think that the more we know, the better we will be at making sure that their needs are met and they don't have to look elsewhere. The other, in terms of what can draw the families into the district, I think our 4K programming is a huge asset to the district, especially as we continue to expand to full day 4K and hopefully at some point 5-day a week 4K. That uses a play-based curriculum but prepares students well. I also think that our dual language programming is a strong draw, and I think we can strengthen both.
Thank you very much. And finally, for this question, Nicki.
Yes, I am thrilled that we're working on increasing enrollment. First, it starts with talking to why people are leaving. I want to know from teachers, I want to know from staff, I want to know from students, but most important, I want to know from parents on why. That's first. Secondly, what I could do to increase enrollment. I think the things that we need to sell as a district, because let's face it, schools are competitive, is our CTE programs. What we're providing, as my opponent stated, not everyone goes to a four-year college. We've just provided increased 3D printing, increased auto programs, increased grow your own programs and cooking programs. All of those need to be showcased. Additionally, if you ever want to have a great lunch, go to Badger Rock where they grow their own food and their own plants to see that. Those things need to be addressed and advertised because that's what we're proud of. And the most important also is we need to advertise our commitment to individuals with disability because unlike most districts, we do not cap open enrollment of the disabled. Thank you.
So our final kind of formal question will be from Jules DaCosta from Simpson Street Free Press. Also, if there's any follow-up questions, this is the time to ask it after Jules and our responses for his question.
I recently read a story by Erin Gretzinger in the Capital Times. Erin reported on a grassroots community group called the Wisconsin Literacy Justice Coalition that is advocating for the district to train more literacy tutors, arguing that more training is needed beyond what the district currently offers through programs like Schools of Hope. Do you believe the district's current training and approach to volunteer tutoring is sufficient, or do you agree that more training and more tutors are needed? Please explain your position and how you would approach volunteer tutoring in the district.
All right, thanks. We'll start with Blair on this one.
Okay, great. Jules, thank you for the question. I read that story too. I had a chance to meet with some of the members of the Literacy Coalition just last weekend. Do I think our approach is fine how it is? The answer to that question is no, especially with Schools of Hope sunsetting as a result of federal funding cuts. We have to do something different. I think the idea of trained, committed tutors from the community in our schools is amazing. We have over 5,000 volunteers now, and I know that community members in Madison of all ages and from all parts of the community want to support Madison students. I think the challenges come, as with everything, in implementing a program like that. What happens when volunteers want to take their vacation right in the middle of the school year? What happens when we don't have enough volunteers to fill every single classroom? So I do support the efforts, and I'm in support of them and eager to see how we can support them. I don't think it's as simple as just flipping a switch and saying yes.
Thanks, Blair. Daniella, go ahead.
Thank you for the question, Jules. I also, like Blair, I also had a chance to meet with members of the coalition, and I also agree with Blair that that they make an important case. I do believe that more robust training is very helpful. I am a volunteer with the Schools of Hope currently. I volunteer weekly at Cherokee Middle School. I work in a math classroom, so I see firsthand the power of tutoring and how important that is for both the tutor and the students. So I do think that they have available training that seems very rigorous through the Goodman Center. I think that the coalition seems to provide a very important resource. And so far it hasn't been picked up by the district. I do not know exactly why that is. As a board member, I think, or as a future potential board member, if I have the chance, I would like to ask questions about why that is the case, and what we can do to make sure that we can get us an evidence-based program that has a robust approach to tutoring into our schools so that we can explore the benefits of this program. And if proven beneficial, it can be expanded in the district.
Great, thank you. Nicki.
Yes, I have not met with the Literacy Network as of yet because of scheduling due to my work schedule has been quite challenging. However, I plan to. I am very big fan of the Literacy Network's work. I like the way they're doing, but we do need to increase our training. And we don't often use volunteers enough. I agree. But I want training in culturally responsive teaching, 1. 2, in how to work with students with special needs, because that's essential. 3, what their experience is working with children who have gaps. Those are all essential. And the other thing that I want on working with all the Literacy Network is the ability to meet not just after school, but also before school, because not everyone is good at that time of the day. So we need to meet with that. I am a strong, strong believer that it takes a village to raise a child, and strongly believe that the more people helping to fix and work with our students on and fix the literacy problem, the better we will do as a society as a whole. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Dana.
So that was actually one of the groups I met with really early on in the campaign, is the literacy group, and so I've been trying to think of creative ways that they could have more of an impact in our schools. I think there are so many people in our community that see that literacy is a challenge in our district and they want to help, and I think that we as a board could really use their help, and so to all of my candidates on the call's points, I think we just need to evaluate how we're going to roll it out in the most effective way that reaches kids where they're at, and that involves them getting more engaged with their learning. And I think, absolutely, to Nicki's point, I think our community has a responsibility to helping our children succeed. And so programs like this are really important and can be really impactful. So I'd love to see it rolled out.
Awesome. Any follow-up questions from any of the journalists that you want to take the time to share now for our candidates?
I have a quick question on the subject of, open enrollment. Right now, the district is going through a boundary and attendance area review process, and something that has come up specifically from Superintendent Gothard is this question of whether the district could benefit from exploring the addition of magnet schools, more specialty programming, charter schools within the district. And at the same time, we saw a lot of people in the first community survey taken expressing an interest or ranking really highly a priority of having neighborhood schools. So I'm curious to hear from board members how they're thinking about, traditional neighborhood schools versus adding more charter schools or school options. And I guess maybe starting with Nicki, I see her hand is up.
Yes, I believe we do need more neighborhood schools. Charter schools are only an option for me if they're instrumentality charters, which are run by the school board, because I don't believe charter schools that are not run by the school board and vouchers could actually harm education. I believe in more neighborhood schools, one. Two, I want magnet schools, schools for the arts, absolutely, as long as they're instrumentality charters. But we also need to listen to our community. They want closer schools that their kids can walk to. They want schools with unique and different programming, maybe one that focuses on more vocational and tech, because there's some people who have known since they were 5 years old they want to be a mechanic. Great. Wonderful. Some people want to do other things such as cooking. We could focus on that as well. I think all those programs, dance, the arts, I would love an arts academy. Absolutely. The only thing I would be against is non-instrumentality in voucher schools, which I am firmly against.
Thanks, Nicki. Is there another candidate that wants to jump in here for a minute response?
Sure. Happy to. Oh, go ahead, Dana.
So one of the really beautiful things about our district is the diversity of our student population. And where I do think that we could have more magnet programs, I am much more in favor of having them within the schools instead of having them siloed off and separating those students. I think it's really beneficial for students to be around people that are different from them. That's where we have growth. That's where we have cultural literacy. And so I would love to see a blend of both neighborhood schools and magnet schools within those neighborhood schools.
Blair, you can go ahead.
Okay, great. Erin, thank you for the question. I saw what you saw in the initial survey as well, that people said that we value our neighborhood schools. But the thing I saw even above that was people value excellent schools, which we can do lots of different ways. The boundary review process, Building for the Future, is set up to bring scenarios to the public beginning like in May. That's really, really exciting. And from that, we will get feedback from people. So I want you to be really clear that there are no decisions that have been made, that ideas about instrumentality charters or magnet schools are ideas that we're going to get feedback from the community about so that we can make the next step, the best next step for the whole entire community.
I wanted to build on what Blair said, which is that I think the scenarios and the discussion around this is basically a discussion around how do we meet this bigger question, which is how do we meet the needs of the families that we serve? How do we, and this is related to the question of why families are over enrolling, and the bigger question of how we support learning and excellence, like Blair said. So I think holding this question front and center, how do we meet the needs of all our families, will be key when we make these decisions, and having families' voice as central to that process, like Blair said, I think is extremely important, because whatever decision we make, whatever school configuration we land on, we have to make sure that all families have access, that transportation is there for them, that distance is not an issue, that there are crossing guards where there need to be crossing guards, and so on. And so I think within that bigger scope of how do we make sure that we meet the needs of all the families that we have, I am, like Blair, excited about the process of getting family feedback and engaging in collaborative decision making. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for that follow-up question, Erin. All right, so we are wrapping up and we are at the time for closing remarks. So each candidate will now have 2 minutes for closing remarks. So we will start with Blair on this one, for the incumbent for seeking re-election for, seat number 6. So.
Thanks, Taylor, and thank you to the whole crew at Simpson Street Free Press for hosting all of us tonight. My pitch to you is that I'm a classroom teacher. It's something I really want you to know about me. I'm the only serving board member who works day to day in our schools every day as a full-time teacher. And I'm the only candidate who's a full-time teacher who can bring that perspective. And while that perspective is really, really important, the work of the board is not the same as the work in schools. And what's made me effective in my first term is my ability to organize and make relationships with people across the city and many stakeholder groups. I'm running for re-election because experience matters. It matters in the work that we do. It matters in the broader fight that we're in for the success of our public schools. And it matters in our schools. My record is standing up for workers, taking action for students, and building the stability and the collaborative future vision that MMSD has badly needed in the past few years. In my first term on the board, we met cost of living increases in every single budget. We expanded full-day Fort K. We hired a great new superintendent, stabilized staffing, and took steps to prevent gun violence through the promotion of safe firearm storage. I'm the first person to run for re-election to the seat in 10 years, and I'm really proud of that. I'm asking for your vote on April 7th because together we can accomplish a historic transition to full collective bargaining. We can accomplish the creative, caring, community-connected classrooms that we deserve, and we can do that with a strong, focused, balanced budget with the state aid that we need and that we need to fight for in coalition with other school board members, with other elected officials, with families, students, and community members across the city and across the state. I'm asking for your vote on April 7th. I'm Blair Mosner Feltham, and let's get to it.
Thank you, Blair. Next up is Daniella, also running for seat 6.
Thank you, Scott. Before I say something about myself and my candidacy, I would like to thank all of you in the press for publishing positive news about our district and helping to highlight the excellence in our district. And I hope that you continue to do so. It is so easy to publish on negative stories and highlight those. And we know that we as humans are more prone to pay attention to negative news. So thank you for taking responsibility for the coverage that you provide. And I would like to encourage you to continue to be walk alongside us and be advocates for public education, and to maybe even be thought partners with the board about how we can continue to work on showcasing the excellent and wonderful things that are happening in the district, because we live at a time when public education is under attack and under-resourced. And so I think that that we need to shoulder that responsibility together. And the more we can work together on that and spreading a positive message and highlighting what is going right in our schools, I think the better we will be. One of the very important jobs, I believe, of a board member is to be an advocate for public education within our communities, but also at the state level, advocating for fair funding with the board members, with the superintendent, with boards across Wisconsin, and with other superintendents and teacher unions. And that's definitely something that I hope we see as a shared responsibility of a community. So this is my call to you as members of the press. As far as I go, I would love a chance to serve and bring a systems perspective to the seat. I am a researcher who has experience in district improvement, and I would like to help MMSD get serious about getting better at getting better. So get serious about improvement. I would also like to bring a lens that centers the needs of multilingual students, and by centering those needs makes education better for everyone. And that those two are two unique perspectives that I hope to have the chance to bring. Thank you.
Great, thank you. The next closing statement is from Nicki Vander Meulen, an incumbent running for re-election for seat number 6.
Hi, my name is Nicki Vander Meulen. I will learn how to use a mute button, but today is not that day. I am running for seat 7 for my 4th term because strong schools and honest leadership lead to excellence and support for all of our students. I'm a strong partner with the Madison Teachers Union. I have worked with our janitors, our staff. I've worked to get mental health days during COVID so our staff could, and to get them so that our staff could actually use these mental health days instead of being afraid to take them. That's the first thing. Secondly, I'm a strong voice for all students, whether it's students with disabilities, gifted students, students with reading issues. All of these students I can and do represent. Additionally, I provide the experience and the knowledge as an attorney who knows schools from the inside out, who has faced personal discrimination and prevention of education. My parents had to sue to get me into public schools. Now my job is to make sure public schools are accessible to all students. And those are the reasons I'm running for re-election. And that's it.
Our final closing statement tonight is from Dana Colussi-Lynde.
All right, I am Dana Colussi-Lynde, and I am running to ensure that all of our students are prepared for the future ahead. It's going to be a very unusual future, I believe, something that none of us on this call have experienced thus far, and I think it's our responsibility as community members to ensure that they have what they need to be successful, whether they're going to college, whether they're going into the workforce, or whether they're going just out in the community. I have 25 years of experience in technology, business analysis, and leadership, and I will bring all of those skills to the role. I am excited to be able to dig into some of our complex budget issues to identify where we're spending our money, where we could make some refinements, and invest intentionally into our students and our schools. I also have worked in canvassing and volunteering with political organizations, and so I'm really used to talking with my neighbors, hearing from them about what their concerns are, about what they see for the future of our community, and I want to be the person to help them realize that vision. And so I think that I am the best candidate for this seat because I am going to ensure that all of our students in the district are being considered in our future plans, and I can get them ready for the future.
All right, thank you so much. So I just wanted to do a quick call out that Madison voters will have an opportunity to hear from school board candidates on Wednesday, March 11th. So organized by the Capital Times, Erin, who you see here, Gretzinger, reporter for the Capital Times, and I will moderate an in-person public forum on March 11th from 7 to 8 p.m. in room 1353. Again, that's 1353 at La Follette High School. So that is my high school I went to, so I'm very excited for that. Look forward to another session there. Yeah, Scott's too, right?
L's up, go Lancers.
Yes. Go Lancers for sure. Um, but a very special Simpson Street Free Press thank you to Scott Girard here for helping us tonight, and my co-moderator here. Thank you to all our 4 candidates for answering our questions. Thank you to our panel of local journalists for participating in this Q&A. And of course, thank you to our audience for tuning in. So please vote on Tuesday, April 7th. And remember, never ever hand in your first draft.